I've actually spent over $452,000 on different courses and mentors over the last few years. And that sounds crazy, right? But by now I'm sure you heard of all the gurus ranging from Tai Lopez to Tony Robbins to Grant Cardone and hundreds more. Today I'm gonna walk you through my wild journey on exactly what didn't work, what did work, and how each dollar spent helped me level up on my path to becoming a millionaire and also level up as a person. Now, whether you're considering your first mentor or you're just here to see if I'm a little nuts, my story is gonna give you real life insights into the world of becoming a millionaire. But before I became a millionaire, we need to go back 7 years to a little town called Friendswood, Texas. I grew up in a Mormon family of 9, and at that time, my life consisted of playing football and skipping out on church. And that's when my father introduced me to a man named David Fry. Now, David Fry met me, took me to Subway, and sat me down and asked me what I wanted to do with my life. And I told him at the time that I just wanted to make a ton of money, and I was studying engineering. And he told me, laughing as he said it, that business would take me much farther than being an engineer. And he made a deal with me that if I would go back to church each week, every Sunday, that he would start teaching me how to build a business.
Psych! To this day, I feel guilty because
you never went to church.
I did not.
He taught me low ticket sales, VSLs, funnels, email automations, everything that you need to build a successful online business. And the total investment I made for this program was exactly $0. And it turns out that was their attempt to make me a little bit more religious, but it just ignited the fire in me to go out and build my own business. And that's when I turned to my first paid mentor. My first investment in mentorship was with a coach named Sterling for $5,000. On this sales call, I get super high pressured by his sales rep into buying it. I put $2,000 down in cash and then put $3,000 down on a credit card, and I had no idea what I was getting into. Now, Sterling was all about high ticket sales in the online fitness industry. He taught me about messaging, how to charge higher prices, how to do phone sales, and keep in mind at the time, this was completely foreign and wild to me because I was selling a $47 fitness program. Now, while the content was solid, it felt as if the delivery was mostly hype. A lot of the videos would have a lot of rah-rah and hype in it versus more tactical and strategy, which for a guy like me is all I really looked for. So was this valuable? Absolutely. Without taking this program, I never would have become a multimillionaire, done over $100 million in sales, and built an 8-figure net worth. But in terms of the actual delivery, it was a little underwhelming. My second official coaching program was with a woman named Amber for $5,000. Now what she did, she came in and helped me set up KPIs, SOPs, and streamline my entire messenger process. And what that was at the time is I would generate all my sales from Instagram, DMs, Facebook DMs. And so I had people in there when I couldn't be, streamlining that process and pushing prospects to sales calls. This was a game changer for operational efficiency in my business where I got tons and tons of time back by getting this off my plate. So was it worth it? Definitely worth it. Next up, I paid $15,000 to a guy named Vito. And at this point in my business, I was trying to scale past $100,000 a month, and I thought this was the guy. But instead of a working game plan, he pushed me to multiply my offers. So think of low ticket items everywhere. So imagine starting to juggle over 100 apples when you've only been juggling 1 or 2. My focus diluted, profits dipped, and all I have is complexity. So the lesson, simple scales, fancy fails. Vito said, you have to think like Apple, they have a ton of product. So I decided I would just eat the apple and call it a day. What do we rate this? Then there was $10,000 down the drain, pretty much. I was promised a revamp in my marketing funnels and a boost in webinar conversions. Not only did his strategies not work, but I found myself correcting things he'd done, things that I'd already tested. Now I managed to get half back of what I spent, but the real takeaway is if you're outsourcing things in your business, make sure they care about it as much as you do. Otherwise, you're just another invoice. And to tell you the truth, they never do. So let me just pause right now and let you know that my family at this point starts to tell me not to invest in any more coaching and that I'm making so much money organically just working without paid ads that if I would just keep the money that I was making instead of paying more coaches, I'd be a lot better off than continuing to try. So feeling a bit burned at this point, I was hesitant to dive back in, and that's where Taylor came along, another $10,000 on the line. Now, Taylor didn't teach me anything revolutionary about B2B consulting, but what he did do is challenge me. He told me to stop whining, double down on outreach, and seriously hustle. In fact, there was a point in the program where he told me, if you don't stop whining, I'm gonna refund your money and kick you out. Actually happened. So there's a distinct moment when I'm in this program where I'm getting really upset with the coach that was assigned to me, and I was getting so upset that that coach had Taylor, the CEO, give me a call. And Taylor was pissed because he's at dinner with his wife. And he gets off the phone, and as soon as he gets off the phone, I can tell he's super upset. I said, oh, sorry, dude, go back to your dinner. And he just challenged me and said, look, man, either do the work and stop whining, or I'm gonna refund you and kick you out. And I got so upset in that moment because I didn't want to accept failure or that I was a loser, that I sat down and doubled down on everything I was doing. And that exact moment is where I figured out ManyChat, and it changed everything. Now, if you go back to 2017, ManyChat was the first of its kind where you could start running messenger ads. No one was really doing it. And I just started testing those because my webinars weren't working. And after this phone call, I sat down, got pissed, looked at my computer, and started messaging each and every lead that had come in over the last month. And instead of spending $3,000 and breaking even like I was, I spent $3,000 and made $18,000 up front, and I couldn't believe it. And I knew in that moment is when everything was gonna change. And by using this feature and having an aggressive follow-up, I was able to go on that year and do over $1 million in sales, and then go on to my second year to do my biggest jump in revenue ever of $10 million. And keep in mind, to that point, I'd blown $45,000 on coaches, about $20,000 to $25,000 more on ads, and my family and parents were telling me to stop spending money on coaches. So there's two lessons here. One is never give up. If you don't know how to get to the next level, it's because there's information you don't have, and the only way to get high-level information is to pay for it. And then number two is that if you have aggressive follow-up systems, you don't have to be as good of a marketer. And that's what's made me so successful, is I'm not the best marketer, but I'm just the best at follow-up processes. So I guess you can say with this experience, give me the gladiator thumb. Bye! This video. Now let's talk YouTube. I paid a guy named Anthony $10,000 who laid a foundational framework for my YouTube success. Now, although basic, his guidance helped lay a foundational framework for my future success. But I realized I'd actually have to put effort into making content. And at that time, I hated content. In fact, to this point, I've never put in enough effort to actually grow a big YouTube. And so I've started to realize that there are no tricks, there are no ploys, there are no tactics. You have to put as much effort into YouTube as I have building a business. And if you don't do the work, you don't get the results. So that was a good lesson to know that I couldn't just get a script or have someone tell me what to say. I had to actually plan it out. Is it gonna go up? Is it gonna go down? Next, I paid Aller $12,000 to help broaden my YouTube approach to find personal trainers who wanted to build online training businesses. This didn't work as well as I hoped because the fitness industry is mostly crowded by people trying to lose weight and not by people trying to make money. So broadening my marketing and using his tactics didn't have the perceived effect I wanted, because although we reached more people, we didn't reach any more trainers. And so we went in circles, we lost a ton of money, and it ended up not being a great investment. My takeaway with this was to end up trusting my gut. And so when we bring up the gladiator finger, bye! Next was another YouTube coach named Liz for $10,000. She provided a solid structure for my YouTubes going forward by showing me how to script out videos. Now, I hated scripting then and I hate scripting now, but when I say scripting, I don't mean word for word reading off a teleprompter. I mean having a structure to the video, making sure it flows, almost as if it's a table of content. You can't just run and gun and hope you get good results. You have to put more time into the scripting than the actual shooting. The scripting is the hard part and takes the longest, and the shooting itself should take the shortest amount of time. But looking back, I'll take it on the chin. I wasn't willing to do the work, and so the investment didn't have the payoff I was looking for. This was a harsh reminder and critical evaluation, and a reminder in general that you just have to be willing to do the work, and trying to get around the work is never going to get the outcome you're looking for. So when I bring up the gladiator finger, because I didn't do the work. Daryl is up next, and he was my most expensive YouTube gamble at $65,000. The breakdown of that was one $15,000 done with you course, and then a one-to-one session in person. Now, the insight is sometimes you overpay for simplicity. I was way overthinking what I needed to do and making it way more complex than it needed to be. When it came down to it, what he taught me is you watch the top content creators you want to emulate, script it out, shoot it a bunch of times, and add in professional editing. Nothing that would sound outrageous or that you would think wouldn't be something that you would expect from a top YouTube channel. Not only that, but I had to fly out to bump nowhere for this session, so overall, it ended up being a little bit of a wash. So when I give this the Gladiator rating, double thumbs. Next up, let's talk about the big guns. Turning to e-commerce, I paid a guy named Gallant over $100,000 to show me how to buy and flip e-commerce stores. This did not go how I hoped it would go. I met Gallant through a mutual friend, and he told me he would show me how to buy and flip e-commerce stores. And at the time, I just looked at it as another easy way to spend a couple hours a day making a ton of money. But when it was all said and done, this took me away from my strengths and my businesses that made me the most money, and then turned my focus and attention to something that wasn't making any money. This reminded me to stick to my strengths and not to get shiny object syndrome. I didn't really need the money, and to be quite honest with you, I didn't even need the distraction. All it did is it took my focus off what was making me a ton of money and put my focus on something that wasn't making me any. Like all crypto wannabes, get rich quick schemes and scams in between, I thought that I could put in a little bit of effort to get a very massive payout. And at the end of the day, you only get out what you put in. So if I had to rate this investment, we're having fun out here. Can you go back? Here comes another $100,000. Now, this coach's name was Steve Hardison, and with Steve, I didn't just invest into my business, I was investing into myself. I went to Steve because I was having massive personal challenges in my life, and what I mean by that is when you make a lot of money really fast and you go from a loser to a winner and everyone wants to be around you, you can buy anything, do whatever you want, you start creating maybe a false reality or misconception on what's important in life and where you should be spending your time. And what Steve did is really just realign me with the fact that all the problems in my life, all the things that I was complaining about was because of me, that I was creating that reality, and that the brain in your mind is so powerful that you can have the same situation or go through the same thing as someone else and have a completely different outlook on it or a completely different outcome. And so what I really learned with Steve was how to create my reality, how to change as a person, where I didn't let what other people did affect how I was going to be, that I already decided beforehand how I would act in difficult moments, and that would be the difference in the outcome. Bar none, this was the best investment I've ever made, although we didn't talk anything about business and only about how to think and how to use your mindset. Is completely transformed my life. So if I had to give this a Gladiator rating, I'm gonna give it a double thumbs up. At this point, things came full circle where I go back to my original mentor, David Fry, where I paid him over $6,000 to help me in my relationships and then possible future marriage. And although I'm not married, David has been married for a very long time, and I hold him in a very high regard, almost as if he's a second father. As I worked with him, he reinforced lessons on personal development, emotional maturity, and overall how to have a successful relationship with a woman. But the best part is not only did David help me for free when I first started out, not only is he a great father, a great husband, a great mentor, but this program only cost $6,000 after spending hundreds of thousands on other ones. So when I give the Gladiator thumbs, it's definitely a thumbs up. Next up on my financial roller coaster, so to speak, was Roland, who I spent over $20,000 for. Now, what I paid Roland for was to teach me about buying and acquiring businesses and starting to learn about private equity. Now, here's a twist. While he promised to simplify the complexities of private equity and acquiring companies, it almost felt like an overpriced lecture that I could have just Googled for free. So I went to Google, typed in how to waste money, and hit enter, and that's what popped up. The biggest lesson here is that I spent $20,000 to learn that I was overcomplicating things. It wasn't as groundbreaking as I hoped it would be, but it was a good reminder that a lot of the biggest changes in business come from taking action, and it's not from sitting in a seminar room. And we rate this code. Bing! Now, jumping back to something more of you will relate to is I paid $15,000 for therapy. Now, why did I go? It was life stuff. I was struggling again in my personal life, but what it reinforced is that other people's opinions just don't matter. Most of the time I'd sit in there and they'd say, well, Tanner, tell me what you think about this. And I'd be thinking, well, I don't know what the fuck I think. That's why I paid you to sit down. So it turns out you need to figure the answers out yourself. So in a sense, you need to become a Jedi. And we rate this coaching. Now, because I said Jedi and I'm thinking about Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia, let's get into more relationship coaching. Now, these next two coaches was a guy named Adam, who I paid over $10,000 for, and another guy named Mike. who I paid over $5,000 for. Now, while it was still a good experience because I learned from both of them, I realized that their values didn't align with mine, and I came to find out after one of the coaches I paid had actually hit on my girlfriend just hours before. That was awkward. I was out a total of $15,000 and my ego was in the toilet. So if I had to give a gladiator, for the guy who didn't hit on my girlfriend, for the guy who hit my girlfriend, you. Next up was William, who I paid over $20,000 to teach me more about mindset, similar to what I learned from Steve Hardison. By working with him, this really doubled down to me that you can create your own reality. And by that, I don't mean any woo-woo stuff, nothing weird. It's how you react to things. It's how you decide to be in those difficult moments, which is what shapes how your reality can be. And people have a lot more control than they think they do. In fact, next week, I'm going to one of his events to work with him in person, and it's been a great overall experience. So if I had to give him the gladiator fingers, thumbs up. And finally, Intro Connect, where I paid a whopping $54,224, where I got very high-level strategies from CEOs and entrepreneurs that had sold their companies anywhere between 40 million as high as $4 billion. This proved that sometimes the right advice at the right time is worth its weight in gold, and I will definitely be going back to these platforms over the next few years to continue to get advice for high-level decisions in my companies. This was definitely some of the best and highest level coaching that I'd ever gotten for a very low cost, basically a fraction of some of the things I paid for in the past, and I would highly recommend using these platforms. Woo! Over $452,000 later, here's the bottom line. Investing in yourself comes with no guarantees. You'll hit some, you'll miss some, but every step builds you. Filter out the noise, focus on what works, and remember the best investment is investing in yourself. If I had never done this, I would never have done over $100 million in sales. And so people will hear some of the bad stories that I just talked about and have a reason not to invest, where the winners will see that all that failure led to my ultimate success. So if you're ready to take your life and business to the next level, all I'm gonna tell you is don't hesitate. And hey, if you have any questions about mentors, drop those in the comment section below or share some of your positive and bad experiences so we can all learn from each other. Thank you guys so much for being here. Hope this was a great video. I'll see you guys in the next one.